Welcome back to the podcast. This is Matt Eagle at Eagle AI Agency. Welcome to Talent Talks. I'm actually here with Noah Newell, at IntelliTalent Solutions. Welcome to the podcast. Excited to have you on. I know you have great insights on, I know you just started your staffing firm and in the direction that you're going to as well and doing those things. So really excited to just get into it and ask a few questions. Just like we've done in prior podcasts, we're really just trying to target some of the pain points in staffing and maybe what's new, and then also how AI is impacting staffing on your side. My number one goal is to be able to help businesses grow, right? I think there's a lot of things that are happening from a large scale when it comes to market share being taken from teams that have internal proprietary AI systems that are helping them really catch a break in a lot of different areas. And it's kind of putting people who want to own a business out of business, right? And I've been seeing that a lot, right? So what I want to do is be able to kind of shine some light on maybe how AI is working, how it's not working, maybe your insights on that too as well. But really, generically, get into the market. What is it looking like? What are you doing? How does it work? That kind of stuff. So if you can, go ahead and introduce yourself and introduce your company and some stats too as well from the last year, and then we'll kind of kick it off from there.
Yeah, absolutely, Matthew. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here and help out however I can. I'm Nolan Newell. I'm actually the owner of IntelliTalent Solutions. I've been doing this for just about a year at this point. But I've been doing it in the industrial automation space is kind of where I kind of live and breathe, so to speak. It's where I started my sales career years and years ago. So it just kind of felt like a natural progression of things. And, I will let you know that I really started this because I really wanted to work for myself. I've always kind of known that about myself. And B, I really wanted to actually help people. I know that sounds kind of cheesy, and a lot of recruiters, they may give you the same spiel, but no, it really is true. The paycheck is a secondary, a byproduct of me actually helping find, a candidate's, next opportunity, their dream job, and whenever possible. It's just extremely rewarding, to hear the feedback and stuff, and when you finally do make that placement, and I always try to catch up with my folks down the road, and I try to do like 60 and 90-day check-ins at the very least with the candidates and just say, hey, how's it going? And it's really nice to hear from some of them that they're loving what they're doing now. So
Yeah.
that's really why I do it. But yeah, we can jump into, you touched on a lot of things in that intro there. Where would you really like me to start?
Yeah, it's interesting enough. Your story is you were a hiring manager at one point, so you know what it looks like on the other side too as well.
Yep.
Maybe talk about that first. Is what has been your experience as a hiring manager? Working with staffing firms, and then what do you want to make in your brand different than theirs, right? Because I know you talk from a very authentic place,
For sure.
which most people sell, but I think because you're on the other side, you actually want people to feel, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I can speak to that. So I have been a hiring manager. I have worked with external recruiters, and I've actually worked with external recruiters on both sides of the aisle. So as a candidate and as a hiring manager, I've worked with a couple in my past that I thought were very good, very thorough, genuinely seemed like they wanted to help. But I've worked with a lot of recruiters, and I think everybody out there, anybody that's listening to this can relate to this. I've worked with a lot of recruiters that, for lack of a better term, they were bad recruiters. They were very transactional. It was very much, let's find a name and a resume, and let's just see if it sticks. No follow through, no follow up. Some of the recruiter experience that I've had as a hiring manager, I would have recruiters sometimes just send me like 10 resumes. I'm a hiring manager, right? This is one function of my job, is to build my team up. And if I'm gonna pay you your fee, whatever that looks like, 20, 30% on a contingent hire, I expect you to put some of the work in, right? Especially on a retained type of search as well. I don't have time to screen 10 resumes, right? Don't get me wrong, I would do it, but where's my value, right? And so I guess for me, when I started this, I really wanted to do it differently. I try to develop a very personable approach to both sides. So I like to get to know my hiring managers. If there's an HR partner involved, I really like to get to know them. And obviously, I want to get to know my candidates. When I present candidates to a hiring manager, I would say my average is probably around 3 to 4 profiles that I will put together for any given position. That just takes a lot of the time out of it. And if I'm being completely blunt about it, I've already gotten to know that candidate before I presented them. So one of my biggest goals is I want to find that cultural fit. I don't want to just check the experience boxes, right? I don't think that that's a very effective way to hire anybody. I think that you need to know who you're dealing with. You need to know what their drivers are. You need to know what their core values are. And I will say this too. I get to ask questions that hiring managers can't ask. And I don't mean like, age or, race or anything like that. Obviously, we're not talking about discrimination here. But, I can get to ask them about their family lives. Like what kind of hobbies do they enjoy? And I try to align those values and their core values as much as I can with the organization or with the hiring manager because, there's an old saying, I'm sure everyone out there has said this, people don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. And if I'm working with a hiring manager, that's going to be their direct report. I want to at least make sure that I feel like they're compatible. Now, do we get it right every single time? Absolutely not. But our hit rates are so much better, and our retained, talent retention rates are so much better because we do take that extra step. I do take that extra step. I do get to know them. I do try to make sure personalities aren't clashing as best as possible. And I do try to hire and present candidates that I feel like would be a good cultural fit for my hiring managers.
Yeah,
without having to screen 10 plus resumes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you understand what a manager's dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I think when, obviously we all know this, staffing firms have young folks that just assume that you're ready to take a resume and not understand you're under project pressure, you're under, certain scrutiny on other areas of your business, and you're trying to get those fixed, and now you have to screen 10 resumes, right?
Right.
And how much does that leave morale of that connection and relationship? They might like the person in staffing, they're not just producing. So for you, it's kind of like you understand the role that the manager has, and you understand what would add the best value to them possible when it comes to having an outside recruiter helping them and then making that bigger bang for their buck, right? Because if they're all about, to be honest with you, all of them are taught very similar things. So in their mind, they're like, a recruiter's a recruiter, right? So that I'm going to get the same result from one person to the other. And that's just not true, right? There are people like yourself, Nolan, that want to take the quality time, understand where the manager's at, understands the industry from inside and out. And now you can find the right people for the right culture as well, which is one thing that people do not, screen for, which is culture, and they're really understanding what that looks like. So my next question is, what major shifts have you seen in staffing industry in the last 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, so I appreciate you enjoying that insight there. But this year's been kind of tough for hiring across the board. I mean, I don't know if anybody follows the BLS reports. I definitely check them every month when they come out. But we've really just been seeing a big decline in the workforce. As far as what's causing that, and it's across the board, it's across all industries, but as far as what's causing that, I think it really just has a lot to do with the external factors in the marketplace. So, obviously, it's the new year it's the first year with a new president, or a second year, I guess a second term for a new president, but historically, hiring always gets a little weird, and the economic uncertainty it certainly shows on these reports year over year when a new president does come in. And I'm not blaming the president. I'm not really blaming anything else other than the economic drivers. And realistically, it's really just the economic uncertainty of everything. Especially with new policies going into effect, people are wondering what's it going to look like next year. The hiring. I wouldn't say a lot of companies are in hiring freezes, but I've heard a lot more and more about layoffs. Specifically, I've heard a lot of that happening in the automotive space because obviously automation kind of touches on multiple different industries. And I know for the past 10 plus years, we had these EV mandates. So this is just one example that I've seen of these external factors. We've had these EV mandates, so a lot of manufacturers have really been pushing EV manufacturing, electric vehicle manufacturing. When that mandate went away, companies were having to pivot, right? And anytime companies are having to pivot, there unfortunately usually means there's going to be layoffs. entire departments get eliminated, and that really does trickle, upstream and downstream. So, we're really looking at companies that focused a lot in providing support or machinery or integration services for the automotive space. They were forced to kind of abandon a lot of these projects, and then that leaves them kind of scrambling to find more business and pivot into a different space because they were so heavily invested in that EV space when it came to automotive applications. So again, that's just one little example, but across the board, this year was going to be a weird year for hiring overall, and manufacturing is down a little bit, but I do believe that long term things are looking very positive. I do see a lot of bigger companies and even some of the smaller companies that have been able to pivot. I do see a lot of investment going back into manufacturing here, in the United States. Whether that, and I think a lot of that may have to do with the external factors of the tariffs, but I think long term it's going to be very good for domestic manufacturing, and obviously conversely, it's going to be great for automation because everyone in manufacturing, all these processes, everyone's looking to automate what they possibly can just to help drive those efficiencies and improve their bottom line. And good for me is it takes a village to automate anything. I don't truly see it as automation as a job killer. I see it as a job enhancer. And really what I mean by that is it's supposed to, if you're doing it right, you're not doing it with the sole purpose of trying to eliminate jobs. You're doing it to make those tedious jobs, those unskilled tasks, much easier and much more effective, much more efficient overall. And you still need that technical talent on your side, to maintain that process, machinery, whatever that looks like, to implement it, to integrate it with the rest of your automation or your factory floor or your workers. So the companies that I see are embracing that and really understanding that it still requires that talent component are the ones that are really excelling in this, and instead of the ones that are just trying to do it to get rid of having a bunch of W-2 hourly workers. So I don't think it's a job killer. I think it's a job creator. I think really the big pivot is a lot of these folks have to come back. I guess what I'm really trying to say is it's a skilled job creator. Very highly technically skilled workers are the ones that are flourishing and thriving with it. It unfortunately is kind of taken away from a lot of those unskilled, menial tasks.
I think the recommendation, if anybody's listening to this, is that you got to find a skill. It takes away a lot of the administration efforts. It takes a lot of the receptionist type of roles and stuff like that, where it's just more miscellaneous. It's important, but it's more so just organization, right? Emails, conversations, paperwork, all these other things that are being automated to make it quicker, faster, and easier. That's going to be replaced. There's also, I do partner with a lot of other companies. One of the thing is I work with a data analytics company where AI is obviously taking jobs, but it's taking jobs that, like you just said, that were lower skilled jobs, and the people with the higher skills seeing a lot of benefit from AI automation to making their life more efficient and easier, right? So as you start digging in, you really want to dig into a higher skilled type of position, right?
Yeah, I mean, and just to touch on that too, like I'll give everyone an example here. We all get packages delivered to our doors every single day, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we have robotic applications that can pick and sort packages for us, and they do it at a much higher rate of efficiency. Instead of somebody manually, getting that package to come into the bin, then they're picking it out and putting it over here on this conveyor or that conveyor, that worker is going to get fatigued, even after 30 minutes in, right? But, a vision sensor doesn't get fatigued, and a robotic application doesn't get fatigued under normal wear and normal load, obviously. But, we have robotic, applications that are literally doing that, automating that task for us. So, and that's just a packaging example. That's just one very generic example, but you see it a lot. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It takes away from the menial, unskilled type tasks. So, and I do encourage everyone out there, if you are listening to this and you are in one of those types of roles, do what you can to go learn the technical side of things. Do what you can if you still, or if it interests you at all. Learn what you can. Learn how to program a PLC, right? Learn how to write code for an HMI. Learn how to work on across as many different platforms as you can, because I will tell you right now, that's what's really going to be in demand. That's what's going to set you apart going forward.
There's so much education info too as well that it's a lot cheaper than just going to college, right?
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of trade schools and colleges, which is great, but there's a lot of like real good expert led type of programs that are affordable, even for somebody that says, I don't have the money to go back to school. You don't have to. Just find an expert led organization that allows you to learn at your pace, to learn those technical skills so you're not putting your job at risk. Right?
And jump on LinkedIn. I come across people all the time. That's what they do. They're like, "Do you want to learn how to program PLC? DM me." Yeah, it might be a couple $100 for the class or whatever it looks like, and I do not know the cost of it, so don't quote me on that. But
Yeah.
you can literally just peruse LinkedIn, and you can find people that's what they do, is they're just trying to educate folks. And I will be honest with you, this is kind of a space that most people don't really think about. They think about programming, they're like, oh, software, just
Yeah,
software,
right.
just software.
Right.
And yes, that's very important. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have to learn how to code an app or anything like that, but learning how to, actually, code or program on industrial applications, that's we need more people like that. There's not enough people that are aware of the space, and there's not enough people that are interested in getting into it. I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of those folks, but we really are seeing kind of the most senior folks, that helped create this space, that really helped pioneer a lot of these applications. They started their careers, 25 plus years ago, 30 years ago. They're retiring soon, and we need more people that are interested in this space, because it really isn't. It's not the sexy side of robotics, right? It's not the humanoid. Let's create the Tesla bot. Let me be an engineer for Tesla and help me create the Tesla bot that's going to be running around my house in 10 years. No, we really need people that are focusing on real world applications of the automation space in across industries. It really will set you apart, and it really is a skill set that is invaluable. It's not going to be taken away from you by AI.
No, not at all. And a lot of these education programs are about, I would say, 5 to 10K. With financing, you're spending $200 a month. But it's really, the reality is that you're going to either do that or go back to college, where you're taking a lot of miscellaneous classes for 4 years, right?
Right.
So I love expert led organizations that just say, you want to learn PLC, we're going to teach you just PLC, nothing else, right?
Right.
And it cuts down that cost, cuts out that time. Usually it takes 6 to 12 months, not 4 years, and now you're in a position where you have a technical skill, right? Which I think is
Absolutely.
great. Which I highly recommend. I don't think my kids are going to go to college. They're going to take an expert-led program, and they're going to bounce off those programs because it's so much cheaper and it's better.
Yeah.
So let's go into pain points of staffing, right? Let's go into pain points of staffing. I know we were talking a little bit about your processes too as well, but I think once you get to this level, it's more relationship based, right? Relationship based, and if let's talk it from this place, from what you're doing compared to others. What's biggest challenges are your clients struggling with right now when it comes to talent or when it comes to process?
Yeah. So again, it all comes down to, you're right. It is very heavily relationship based. I don't work with anybody that I don't get to know on a very personal basis, and that's on both sides. But as far as what I'm seeing, the challenges for a lot of these hiring managers is, it's tough to find that good cultural fit. But it's very easy. Well, I wouldn't say it's very easy, but it's a lot easier just to check the experiences off, right? Need to be able to, need to have, Siemens and Allen Bradley, experience. Need to know, you need to know VFDs. You need to know, how to, you need to know factory talk. You need to know whatever that looks like, right? There's a lot of people that have these skills out there, but they're not necessarily the best cultural fit. So I guess that's really what I think a lot of my clients and a lot of hiring managers across the country in our space, I really feel like that's what they're struggling with, is trying to find that good candidate. And And in addition to that, too, a lot of these candidates that I find, they're pretty happy where they're already at, right? They have jobs. They're not going to be the ones that reply to a job posting on your website or on a job board like Indeed or LinkedIn or whatever that looks like. You can put a job post up there, and you're going to get 250 on average, 250 applications. And that was a study done by Glassdoor across all the job postings and job boards. You're going to get around 250 resumes on average for a good job posting. Now that being said, that's 250 applications. Like, oh my gosh, right? So that's another pain point for them. Who has time to efficiently and effectively screen 250 job applications for one role? I know as a hiring manager, I never would have had that time. I barely had time to do the 10 that recruiter was sending me, right?
Yeah.
So, at least effectively. So, finding that hidden talent, finding the talent that actually like wants to come in and actually make a difference. I had an old manager a while back. He called it the gas factor. All right. Capital G, capital A, capital S, all right? And it stands for the give a shit factor. I'm sorry, I came off of a brokerage floor just a few years
No, I
ago.
love that. No, it's real, especially in the manufacturing space. It's real.
Absolutely. And it's real everywhere. That's another thing I feel like you kind of see it across the board where there's a lot of people out there that have they check all the experience boxes, but they just don't quite have that passion or that drive or that take pride in their work. They try to treat every role that they go into like a job. And yeah, on paper, you look great, but are you willing to go that extra mile for what you're doing? Are you willing to stay a little bit later to, or work after hours because, you're like, I'm not, this task is not done yet. I want to see this through before, I call it a day. And I really do try to find people that do have that drive, that passion, and the best engineers out there. They are the ones that never really turn it off. And I'm not talking about they don't ever leave work and go enjoy their home lives. That's not at all what I mean. What I mean is they're constantly trying to improve things. They're constantly tinkering a lot of their hobbies. You'll see stuff like, they enjoy building things, like whether that looks like, little buildings on their property or, they're trying to, build some sort of a switchboard or whatever type of application in their garage, or their gearheads. They love working on their cars or, whatever that looks like. They're tinkerers. I can tell you right now, I was raised by an automation engineer he's now retired. Great, absolutely great father. I look up to him, and honestly, I ask myself, what would my dad do with just about every decision, big decision that I make?
Yeah.
But he's retired now for about 4 years, I want to say. I don't have to worry about my dad keeping himself busy. He is a true engineer by nature, and if he doesn't know how to do something, he'll do it. For example, we had some flooding in one of at our coastal house. And so we had some water damage, behind one of the walls. Instead of hiring a contractor, my dad just said, I'm just going to learn how to sheetrock today. I'm just going to do it. And then, I come down there and he's all proud of the wall, and I don't even know what went into it because I wasn't there. But he was like, yeah, your mom and I we're sheetrockers now. And I'm like, okay, Dad, like, that's great. And he built a garage for his tractor underneath the deck at the house that I grew up in. And he built that deck, 30 years ago too. So he is constantly building, he's constantly tinkering, and he's always looking for ways to improve existing products or things, that he already has. And I'll be honest with you, he's probably got somewhere around 100 or so plus inventions just from tinkering and improving stuff. So that's the kind of engineering talent that really will set you apart because they never really turn it off. They're always looking to improve. That doesn't just mean at work. That bleeds over into their personal interests and hobbies as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. Let's go into, so we have a couple other questions. I want to go into like lead gen, branding, and marketing, right? Why is that important for you right now? Because obviously you're just getting started. Can you let them know how long you've been in business for?
Yeah, I've started this, I want to say my official incorporation was in March of
Okay.
2025. So just around 9 months or so.
Got it. Yep. So how has, what channels bring you the strongest leads? What channels are underperforming? And how important is your brand visibility to you right now? And how has it made an impact on your company?
Yeah, so I guess lead gen for me, what's been the most productive, and I hate to say this, but it's been LinkedIn. Um, it really has been because I try to engage with everyone that engages with me. I try to send at least sending out like messages and stuff like that when someone connects with me, or I'll find a post that I really like or resonate with, and I like I try to leave like comments and I try to provide a lot of value there, but. Yeah, as far as as far as lead gen goes, it's extremely important no matter what business you're doing. But yeah, LinkedIn's been my biggest source for inbound, inbound leads. My other sources have been, a combination of, some databases, and obviously I'll run filters and I'll run target companies and try to figure out who I want to get in touch with. So there is some outbound hunting, lead gen that I do myself too. A lot of that centers more around me actually picking up the phone and trying to connect with somebody. Luckily for all of us is we have a lot of spam bots that call everyone all the time. So getting people on the phone these days is a lot more of a challenge than it was even 10 years ago, because guess what? People don't want to answer phone numbers that they don't know, and they probably get calls from phone numbers that they don't know constantly. So again, when I do get someone that connects with me, it's got to be, I've got to bring value to them, and I really try to approach that from a, hey, here's what I'm seeing, or here's who I'm working with, but just out of curiosity, like what can I do to help you? What can I do to ease some of your, your tension or your headaches or your bottlenecks? What do you need, or who could I refer you to? If at the very least, I try to approach it from a I want to help you standpoint, rather than, hey, here's my sales pitch, right? Hire me. This is what I'm working with, and this blah blah blah. I try to stay away from that approach. I find it a lot more productive if you go in there trying to say, hey, how can I do you a favor? What could I do to help you first? So. And I think you, Matthew, you probably know that approach better than anyone. I think that's probably one of the reasons why you started this podcast in the first
Yeah.
place. So it really is a good thing to do, because people want to work with people that they view favorably, and who doesn't view someone who wants to help them as favorable, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just so the audience knows, I'm sure through each podcast I go through, I didn't go through it this time, but I was an account manager slash account executive for over 7 years in staffing, worked all industries, federal manufacturing, healthcare, IT. It was across the board, right?
right,
And there's a lot of major gaps when it comes to relationship building. There's a gap between trying to get as many recs and filling as many recs, right, and building good relationships and building quality effort, right? So there's always this balance, right? And what people have found is that how much time are you spending one and the other, without burning that salesperson out, or without burning the company out, right? Where you're 24/7 either contacting someone or meeting with somebody, right?
right,
So what's that perfect balance look like, right? And that's what
yeah,
kind of leads into my next one is AI technology, right?
yeah,
How do you lower the barrier from how can I focus all my efforts on relationships
right,
and only focus 10% on administrative efforts, outreach, connecting points, doing all these other things that you could spend all 8 hours a day doing that, and it could be productive, right? So how's AI impacted you specifically, and then how do you think AI is impacting the staffing world currently?
yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up, Matthew. So everyone's talking about AI. It's across the board, across all industries. You can't even scroll a LinkedIn feed without something being about AI. All right. So what I would like to say is I do, and again, I would have probably fallen into this category even just 6 short months ago, but a lot of people are nervous to implement AI, and one of the things that I think drives that is the absolute overwhelming amount of AI tools and engines that there are out there. That's where do you start, right? What can it really do, right? And again, I try to run my business in a very personable, fashion, a very personable way. So I probably don't implement AI as much on my sales or my marketing efforts as I probably could. But that being said, I get to meet a lot more people the way that I'm doing it. But I will say I do use AI for a lot of things. I do use it in like sequencing capacities. So when I'm running a sequence, I have a little process or an order, and it kind of depends on what my sequence looks like. But it will help. It helps send out the automated emails. It will send out, some LinkedIn connection requests. We'll send, messaging out here and there. Obviously, I write all of these messages myself. AI is kind of plugging and playing. I don't have AI actually generate anything that I'm sending to people, because I don't want to take away from that personability and that actual personal touch. But that outreach, it helps with that. It does help with a lot of the administrative stuff. As far as how it's impacting the staffing world, I mean, I think we kind of already said that. I mean, the people are using it more and more for outreach. They're using it more and more for their what's it called, like their answering services, right? They're hey, thanks for calling us here. Someone will be with you shortly, and it's an answering service now. And a lot of people are using it to boost their outreach and stuff. And I will say, unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people are writing a lot of content on LinkedIn with AI engines like everyone knows ChatGPT. I will say that I do use a ChatGPT engine that helps me with my content, but I write my content. It really just kind of helps me format it a little bit better.
Let's before you go forward. Sorry to cut you off. I think really what you're trying to get down to, there's a misconception that if you get something that's AI, that it's not personalized,
Right.
right?
It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, exactly, right? So just because you're getting something that's AI, right? Sometimes there's a tag at the bottom. Maybe you're like, this is written by AI, whatever, right? That doesn't mean the person didn't hands-on personally scribe all of those different types of, to then impact that conversation the way you still would have if you were doing it yourself, but you're not having the time to be able to do it.
Correct.
Right. So
Yes.
really what it comes down to is people are using it to save time so they can focus on what matters most.
Right.
Making a phone call, having the one thing I would say, going back to the beginning, you're having honest conversations with candidates about culture, about their life, about all these things.
Yep.
And if you're not implementing these AI systems for outreach and connection and relationship and conversations to start newer relationship building techniques, then you're taking away from the time you're actually building for quality of the business.
Right.
So typically what people think of AI is just lazy, right? What it really is it's taking away from efforts that really can be done by technology if it's personalized and critiqued to your liking, that allows you to focus more on what matters most, which is delivering for the customer.
Absolutely.
Right.
And yeah, and so that's a great point too. Like, obviously, if it's doing its job effectively, my calendar's full with, meaningful, scheduled, conversations, right? So I'm not spending all of my time dial, leave a voicemail, leave a voicemail, leave a voicemail, right? Or send out an email blast, or because obviously nobody wants to get spammed by emails either. But if I'm doing it correctly, if it's doing its job correctly, what it's doing is just helping me. It's helping me actually get in front of who I want to get in front of and who I want to have a conversation with. And I will say I use it. I do use Calendly. I don't know how much of an AI engine that is, but that does help automate meeting booking requests and stuff like that through my calendar. I don't usually turn down meetings, even when they don't leave a description about what it is. Matthew was one of those. That does help me, organize it. But again, I want to have my day with call after call after call just scheduled right. It makes me so much more effective, and it allows me to focus more on the big picture. Like, let's find that cultural fit for somebody, or let's spend some time consulting with a client about their talent acquisition strategies, or maybe even their talent development strategies, whatever that looks like. So you hit the nail on the head there. If
I
it's doing
think
its
too,
job, I
I've
can
met,
go be effective.
yeah, exactly. I have met so many managers that they were like, why don't you just go to happy hours? Why don't you just go to these events, which we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, they're like, that's the best way to build business. I think that was the best way to build business in the 80s for sure, right? But I think when it comes down to building business today, right, there are people who are looking for you too, Nolan, right?
Right.
So that's the point of your outreach is you're like, I know that there's people out there that would really enjoy having me as a partner. Okay.
Right.
Doesn't matter about all the other people who don't, but I still have to do my due diligence to find people who would value my partnership.
Yep.
Right. So a lot of people are like, why are you reaching out to so many people online? Why don't you just go to the happy hour? Well, obviously, Nolan, you also work outside of your specific area and region and territory,
Mm-hmm.
right? But at the same time, you're like, hey, I want to make sure I'm reaching out to as many people as I can to find people who would value my services so that we can have great partnerships. Because again, for you, it's paycheck second, relationship first,
Right.
right? And I wanted to say that because you know how many lunches I've had where they're like, it doesn't make sense why you call 100 people a day, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then they're like, I never did that. And we have $1 million business. And I'm like, that's awesome. But you got to understand who I'm competing with.
Right.
Right. You're also sitting down with 4 other staffing firms that reached out to you the same way I did and got the success of getting this lunch.
Yep.
Right. So your perspective is stop working so hard, work less, and go do it in person when you're meeting with 4 other people who reached out to you the same way I did.
Right.
Right. So it's a different world on the other side. So if anybody's watching this as a hiring manager, just understand the question you got to ask is what are you looking for and does that person fit?
Right.
That's it, right? And then
Yep.
that's where the yeses and nos should align. It shouldn't just be no, you're a staffing firm. You reached out to me because you used AI, and because you used AI, I don't want to use you because you're inauthentic from your approach.
Right.
No. If you're looking for a good partner, answer the call, have a screening process yourself. And if that person isn't a fit for you as a partner, then kick them out, right?
Right.
But don't judge based off approach.
Absolutely. That one, and I agree with you there. And I will say this though. Yes, it's not the '80s, but I do try to attend, expos and trade shows, conferences, especially within my space because I will tell you this. I think it's kind of invaluable to get in front of people that way. I obviously I obviously know that I can't attend a conference or a trade show every single week. So, and
That's the point.
I'm not just flying out to the next trade show every single time one pops up. Obviously, that's very ineffective use of my time. But the relationships that I create by just walking the floor at big expos or like I went to Pack Expo about a month or 2 months ago. I mean, I probably met 7,500 people that were like in my space, and I mean there were thousands and thousands of people there. Don't get me wrong, but I also got to learn a lot about the new tech offering that's in the market space too. So they are very valuable, but like you said, you can't go to one all the time. You got to use whatever you have at your disposal to get in front of people. That's really where I'm going to be able to explain to you the value that I can provide, and I'm going to actually get to learn what drives you as a hiring manager, as a candidate, whatever that looks like. I've got to talk to you. I can't do that all via electronic communication. The
Absolutely.
electronic
Yeah.
communication may have been the way that I got in the door, but we're not even doing business until we have conversations.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. That was really good. So just kind of draw on the AI technology piece, because obviously that's what I'm in. It's not to replace relationship. It's to help with efficiencies to be more quality. That's it.
Yep.
Right. People who utilize an AI, they probably have a better quality delivery.
Probably, yeah.
Right.
And I mean,
Better relationship.
yeah, I mean, I do write all of my notes and my messaging on my automated outreach. I do write all of that myself. I don't use any gimmicky things or anything like that. I would say that. Am I the best sales guy when it comes to closing somebody right from an email click? Absolutely not. Am I the best sales guy from closing somebody from a first face-to-face meeting? I'm really not. I just want to be helpful. And I really think that the more people that I reach, the more people do tend to see it once they have conversations with me. Once they give me that shot, let's see what they can do. I mean, I really truly do care about improving lives on both sides of the aisle because I don't want my clients to get fatigued or have a bad experience with a recruiter, i.e. me. I want them to have a great experience. I want them to say, you know what, Nolan, is our guy. I want to go back to Nolan. Every single time I need somebody, I'm just going to go to Nolan. Every time in a candidate, let's just say I put them in a role, 2 years later, they're like, hey, I feel like I'm not being challenged up here. I'm looking for, I'm looking for something else. Let me go to Nolan, right? Let me go to IntelliTalent. At least let's go to IntelliTalent, right? But, I want them to know me on a personal level. So it's Nolan and IntelliTalent Solutions, like they're synonymous, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You're not calling IntelliTalent, you're calling Nolan. But that relationship piece is so key. And that's, you have to build yourself, you have to portray yourself authentically. And that's why I write everything that I'm writing.
Yeah, you're the brand. You're the brand, not the
100%.
brand.
And everyone who ends up working for us, they're going to be part of the brand too. So by extension, anybody that's going to be under the IntelliTalent Solutions umbrella, they've got to align with what we're trying to do here. They've got to be authentically themselves and build those relationships, because relationships aren't built from a place of inauthenticity. They're just not. You have to be authentic.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the new psychology of sales, the new model of sales, people are exhausted from the call, slick, nice suit.
Spam calls, your car's warranty is expired.
Hey, are you okay with this being a cold call right now, right? Like doing every tactic possible versus an authentic approach. Right. And I think people will value that. And I love these podcasts because it allows you to really give your side view, so that if people see this, they're able to say, wow, that's the kind of person I want to work with. Because there's so many people out there that want that. But again, everybody's getting clogged up into all these messages and all these different setups and so on and so forth. So,
well, and on top of that too, one of my biggest value offerings, to my clients is I've worked in automation. I have a very, I'd say, high level general understanding of how the components work, how everything molds together, what technology's out there, and what's actually possible for a lot of this this automation equipment and systems, what they can really achieve. I know the personality types. I was raised by a very brilliant automation engineer, in the space for 40 plus years, but I've actually worked in that space. So I focus on my technical talent and my technical sales talent. The reason I included the technical sales guys is because, hey, I mean, I've been in sales, in some sort of sales capacity my entire career, so I really know what it takes, and I'm very good. I'm a very good judge of that type of talent as well. But that's my big value offering, is I actually speak the language. How are you going to place somebody in your organization with a recruiter, an effective recruiter, that doesn't even understand the language? How would I even know? I'm not going to go try to place a financial analyst, right, for a financial firm, because I don't speak that language. I don't even know what half of their certifications would mean. I don't know what the brands are. I don't know who the players are, right? What companies would I even start to pull candidates from? But I know that stuff in just about every major market. I know who to target. I know who to go after, especially if I'm trying to start a brand new search and I just don't have that pipeline there. But I have my pipeline built up. I have my pipeline built up in a lot of major markets. So that's the value that I provide, is I actually speak the language. I'm interested in the tech. I'm interested in what can be achieved through all different types of systems, applications, integrations, whatever that looks like. And I know the job title. So, I mean, again, I speak the language. I care about the space. And I've seen a lot of bad recruiters. They kind of just skim the cliff notes of whatever role they're working on or whatever space that they're in. And in my opinion, that's very ineffective. I try to be effective by caring about the space and caring about my clients and my candidates' needs.
Yeah, if you're a new recruiter listening to this, that's the most important. Industry knowledge is the most important thing, right? You're going to have so much headache post placement if the person doesn't fit culturally and they're missing gaps. But the manager sometimes will help overcome and train. But what are they paying you for then, right?
Right.
Good talent. So thank you, Nolan, for jumping on the podcast. This has been amazing. So how can people find out about you? What are some ways that they can find you? Maybe LinkedIn, your email, your website, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you search IntelliTalent, one word, solutions, so it's 2 words, but if you search IntelliTalent Solutions on LinkedIn, there is a company page there. If you do, connect with that or follow that page, I will see that. You can also send me a message. My LinkedIn is it's literally just the LinkedIn, the traditional link, but it's Nolan-Newell on my LinkedIn as well. My email, you can either send it to my website is IntelliTalentSolutions.com. You can also send me an email, info@IntelliTalentSolutions.com, or if you really want to get to me personally, Newell@IntelliTalentSolutions.com. So just my first initial, last name, no spaces, no dots, at IntelliTalentSolutions, one word.com. So,
Awesome, man.
yeah, please reach out. And my phone number is plastered on my LinkedIn and my website. So if you really want to just have a conversation with me, give me a shout. And if I don't answer your call right away, I will call you right back. I'm very good about that.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Nolan. Thanks for jumping on.
Hey, absolutely, Matthew. Thank you for having me. I hope it was informative. Hope I helped somebody out there.
All right.
Thanks.